Hey, what's going on guys? Obsessed Turf. Hope you guys are having a good one. It's hot. Luckily, we are reaching a cooling trend here. If you can call 90 degrees a cooling trend, it has been in the mid to upper 90s for the better part of this past week. It has been an absolute scorcher. Heat index is well over 100 degrees, and if you have a cool season lawn, you are probably seeing some effects. And if you are starting to see browning in your lawn, stop. Before you water, fertilize, apply fungicide, I want to go over steps that I use to exactly diagnose what is going on in my lawn before I do anything. Every summer, homeowners react before understanding and end up wasting a bunch of money trying to address things in their lawn, if not making things worse. So my goal here is to give you the steps to know exactly what to look for so that you can diagnose your lawn properly. So one thing I want you guys to see is my lawn. For the most part, overall, it looks good. You can see that the lawn actually has a nice green cast to it, and from a distance, everything looks good. But as you get closer and look at the details, you can start to see that there are some things that are starting to happen in my lawn, which we will get into shortly. But most cool season lawns are not going to completely fail overnight, right? They're going to give us small, subtle warning signs first. Learning to recognize those early signs can save you a lot of money, frustration, and help keep you from making things worse. So instead of guessing, I go through 5 questions every time I see summer stress. So the 5 questions that I review are: what patterns do I see? How does it handle foot traffic? Is the soil dry? Is there a localized issue? And is there action actually even required? So the first thing is patterns. What you want to do is just step back from your lawn and get a good look overall across the entire lawn to see, do you see any distinctive patterns, or do you have kind of a nice uniform look to the lawn? Even if it's summer stress and is a uniform look, that is much different than a pattern that you might see, whether it's a patch or multiple patches or some sort of distinctive ringing pattern or halo pattern. You know, you're looking for particular patterns. That's going to help you identify, once you get closer into those areas, what exactly you are going to look for next, right? First identify the pattern and then get closer to that specific pattern or patterns to further identify. And so for me, as an example, I do have patterns in my lawn. I actually have identified and discovered that I have a good amount of Poa trivialis that is present in especially my backyard. The front yard, I definitely have some patches that are happening. This is something I'll be working on in another video, but this is the first step of identifying, all right, now I've got Poa, and what is my plan to address that Poa issue? But what it also does is it allows me to now recognize that, hey, I don't actually have a disease. And that's what I did a couple of years ago. I misdiagnosed this as brown patch. And so when I was going out and seeing Poa that was stressed from dormancy, I was applying fungicide. It's a wrong move, right? I was wasting money and potentially creating an issue for resistance in my lawn because of applying fungicide when it wasn't needed. So that's why it's really important to first identify the pattern and then identify the issue. But let's get into the next step. So the next thing is going to be, how does your lawn handle foot traffic? And so how you determine this is just a simple walk test. And this is one of the easier things to do, because what you're doing is you're going out and you're trying to see, when you step across your lawn, does that footprint stay in the lawn for an extended period of time? It's going to take a little, it'll gradually go back straight, but it should do that in a relatively reasonable amount of time. So if your footprints are staying in the lawn for a long time, you know that your lawn is potentially dried out. If you couple that with a lawn that starts to get, have you ever seen your lawn get kind of, when it in the summer stress, in the summer heat, it starts to get like a smoky, like gray blue type effect? Or the leaves start to curl in. Well, that's actually a defense mechanism for the leaf. Because the leaf blade is dehydrated, it's actually beginning to try to protect itself with closing the stomata on the leaf blade. So what you're trying to do here is identify if you have enough water in the leaf blade itself. And so this was kind of a tricky subject for me because I remember thinking, well, you know, when I mow in the spring, especially when the grass is nice and succulent and lush and it's got that new fresh spring growth, when I walk through the grass, I've got some very distinctive footprints in there. That's different. That is a leaf that is very, very hydrated, and you could say to some extent that it's a little too hydrated, and it's heavy with the water content that's in the leaf blade, and that tends to have it lay down a little bit longer than normal. So that is different than a dry stand where it's going to show your footprints for an extended period of time. And so this is also a good time to help you guys understand that mowing height, and I know I've mentioned this in the past and you probably know this as well, but when the temperatures start to warm up, and I actually raised my mower height about a month ago, you want to prepare your lawn to be at a taller level. Having a taller stand is going to help shade the soil and help shade the crown of your turf grass to extend the moisture retention in the lawn. All right, so the third thing, is your soil actually dry? This is important, guys, I think more than most people think, because especially through this stretch of mid to upper 90s temperatures, and we had very high humidity, we still have high humidity. Average humidity was like in the 60 to 70% range, and of course that was fluctuating. In the mornings it was very high, and then in the afternoons I saw it at like 60, and that is really, really humid. But if you think about overnight conditions with temperatures that were still in the mid 80s and you have high humidity, that's exactly what disease wants to proliferate and actually grow, right? So the last thing you want to do is put water on soil that doesn't need it. And so that's why I have this soil meter right here. And I actually recorded a video yesterday about using this soil meter, so let's check that out. I've used a lot of these over the years, but this one I found is strictly a soil moisture meter. I think my challenge was that I was using meters that had different functionality, pH testing, which is worthless by the way, sunlight testing, which you can see where your lawn is getting sun or shade, so that's kind of a waste. And then what's the fourth one? Temperature, that's it. So temperature and moisture on the other 4-in-1 is pretty good, because I do like to measure soil temperature, especially in the spring, to know when to start things up and whatnot. But this moisture meter, rain is coming, and it was actually lightly sprinkling as I was finishing up. Oh, it felt so refreshing. So let's talk about the different things in the lawn when it comes to moisture. There are some dark patches, I should say some browning that's happening in the lawn here and there, right? Most of this is one of two things, heat stress or POA. But one of the things when you're talking about finding moisture issues is actually go to a dark spot. So we're going to go to this one right here. This is pushing in fairly well, and I'm not going extremely deep. Obviously, the deeper you go, the more moisture you'll pick up. So I'm really not going more than like 2 or 3 inches below the soil level. And as you can see, the moisture level is actually on towards the dry side. So this is going to be an example of an area that is experiencing some dormancy. But if we go into another area, like maybe here, you'll see that that's also dry. Now I happen to know that there is this window gives a reflection onto the soil right here. So this is what you would refer to as a microclimate, also known as a localized dry spot. Window reflections of sun is pretty serious, because not only does it reflect against the window, but you also have the raw sun rays and non-reflected that are shining down in the same spot as well. So it's kind of like a double hit. I am glad that mow is over. But what happens when you put water on something that doesn't need it during a humid stretch is potentially increasing the chances of disease pressure and creating an issue when you really didn't even need to water at all. So this actually really saved me, because with all this heat, I thought, man, I'm tempted to turn on the irrigation. But I thought, you know what? Ask your questions. Check the measurement of the moisture in the soil. Turned out I was really good on just about every part of the lawn. I did not irrigate, and it very well could have saved my lawn from disease. And so this brings us to number 4, guys, and that is, do I have a local problem? Is there a localized reason for why this particular area is having an issue. You know, I mentioned POA triv earlier, all right? But let's say that we didn't have POA triv in that area. Let's just say it was brown. The next thing I probably would do is I would check the moisture, right? Let's say the moisture is dry. Now we know it's a dry spot, but let's say that we are checking all over the other parts of the lawn and we don't have any dryness issues. It's all moist, but maybe this one little spot is dry. That's a localized issue, right? And that's what you can also refer to as a microclimate. And that can be a variety of things. And so what can contribute to that? Number one, let's do a screwdriver test, right? Like, I think that that's probably the first thing that I would do. Stick a flathead screwdriver into the soil and find out, are you obstructed in any way? Or do you hear or feel something? Maybe it's gravel or rocks or something like that, construction debris, or maybe it's compacted soil, right? Maybe when you try to push it into the ground, it's very stiff and it's not going in very well at all. As I mentioned, there are a variety of things with that screwdriver test that you could identify potentially and figure out your issue. Tree roots, bushes, runoff. If you have an elevation, maybe that's not getting as much water as what's around it. Drying around your driveways or sidewalks or the curb, right? These are all areas that tend to lose water through evaporation or competition with other plants. So that's going to be more of a localized issue. And one little last piece to that, guys, when it comes to a localized issue, think about what you did last fall. I actually had a section of grass that was newly planted. I did that in the fall, and then in the next year, as the spring started to heat up, and we actually got a premature heat up in the spring, that area started to go dormant faster than the other grass. Now, when you think about moisture evaporation is happening in the soil, it's happening from the top and going down. So the newer grass had a shallower root system than the older grass did. So if the soil dries out this far and this part is moist, then that soil is still feeding proper moisture to the existing turf longer than the newer grass. So understand that too, that dynamic. And I just wanted to put that out there because that was something that I personally experienced. And so the last question is asking yourself, does it need a form of action? As I mentioned, with regards to the watering, did it need action? In fact, I'll use mine as an example. My lawn did not need action. When I went out there and I saw that the areas that were stressing in my lawn were predominantly POA, and that the existing lawn of the desirable turf was actually performing quite well, I didn't need to do anything because my soil moisture measurements were good. I identified that the only patterns really in my lawn that were showing signs of stress were the POA areas, and I didn't need to water. And so that is the point here. Is there action needed? Don't apply something unless you have gone through the steps. I'll give you another example. Let's say you assume that you have disease and you get a granular fungicide. Let's say you go and get bioadvanced propaganazole in the granule, and you see that your lawn is stressing and you say, I have a disease just because, and you apply this granular product. One of the things you have to do is you have to water that in, right? Granular needs to break down from the water, and you water that in. And if 48 hours later, your lawn becomes green, was it the fungicide treatment? The answer is probably no, because the process of that granular is first to break down through dissolving. That happens over about a 24-hour period as far as dissolving and getting into the soil. And then you have to get it to the root zone. So that usually requires, unless you did a really heavy watering, that usually requires a follow-up watering to really get it into the root zone. At which point you are then having to have the grass take up that product and get it out to the leaves. Now, one thing about propaganazole, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but that entire process, minimum, is 4 to 5 days before you actually start to see the effects of a fungicide application in a granular form. So if you have applied fungicide in a granular form and you start to experience a visual recovery in 48 hours or less, you didn't treat a disease, you watered your lawn. there you have it. So guys, that's why these steps are so important. And speaking of watering, let's talk about that for a bit. I think this is important because I think that there's a lot of people that misunderstand the general rules of watering. Consistency is a lot more important than just watering more often. You have to be intentional about your watering practices. I think one of the main things to do is just learn your lawn, and by using that soil moisture meter, you're going to start to understand that certain areas of your lawn get drier faster than others. That's a different story, but watering is going to be the key, and the time of day. You may have heard this, but I'm going to say it again because I see people in my neighborhood that do this all the time. They water at night. Do not do that, especially when the temperatures are high and the humidity is high. You're just asking for a problem. To water at night and to let that moisture that doesn't have a chance to evaporate because you don't have the sun's exposure, you are creating a lot more chances for disease pressure, and you're really potentially creating another issue for yourself. So what you should be doing is you should be watering early, preferably before sunrise or just before sunrise. And I'll just tell you exactly what I do. I have a 8-zone irrigation system. It is in ground and it is programmable. I started at 4 a.m. and most of the time I'm going to do a ½ inch watering cycle. And by the time it puts a ½ inch through all 8 zones, I'm done around 8. So it's about a 4-hour cycle through those 8 zones. But what if you don't have an in-ground irrigation system? Well, I'll tell you what I would do just as a very entry-level and beginner-level type setup. I would get a couple of hoses, one for the front yard, one for the backyard, and I would get 2 oscillating sprinklers. Here is the oscillating sprinkler that I would get. And then as far as the hoses, just make sure you get a decent garden hose for each sprinkler. And then the next thing you want to do, and which is the more important thing, is you want a timer. So for me, in my situation, because I would have 2 separate zones set up, I would probably get a timer that has 3 outlets on it. I believe that if you get one that has the bare minimum of what you have, and you want the flexibility of that 3rd port, you're out of luck. But if you get one that has 1 extra than what you need, then you're going to be less likely to create an issue for yourself, right? So even though I know that I would probably get away with having just a 2-zone timer, I would probably get a 3-zone timer just to have that extra one as a backup. So what this allows you to do, and by the way, here's a timer that I would recommend. And by the way, guys, I've done the research on both of these, and it would be what I would personally buy myself if I were using it for this particular purpose. So I would set these up. They're pretty user-friendly. There's a lot of tutorial videos online, but I would set these up and I would do early morning waterings, and I would make sure that I was getting down the proper inch of water per week. Now, understanding that my goal is only to have to do 1/2 inch during the week, and then Mother Nature will help me with the other half. But if I wanted to keep out of dormancy, I would be at least putting down or making sure the lawn is receiving 1 inch of water per week. Which, by the way, guys, all of these products are down in the description. Feel free to go and link to those. It takes you directly to the ones that I'm recommending. Just remember, for the timer, you want to make sure that you're getting the one that has the proper zone count on it. So it's the beehive controller, it's really good. And then the Melnor oscillating sprinkler, which that is an aluminum base, by the way, guys. So keep that in mind as it relates to that one in particular. I chose that because of the weight of it. And again, it was what I would personally use based on my research. And so there you have it, guys. Those are the 5 questions that you should be asking yourself before you do anything on your lawn that is browning in this crazy heat. Are there any patterns in the lawn? How does it handle your foot traffic? Is the soil moist or is it dry? And are there any localized areas specifically that you're having problems? And then the 5th question is, do you actually need to take an action? And so guys, if you found this helpful, do me a favor, please like, share the video. If you have any questions, make a comment below. My email is also in the description, so feel free to let me know. Reminder, those links to the products are down there in the description, the timer, the soil probe, and the sprinkler. Thank you so much, guys, for the love, man. I can't tell you how cool this has been to, talk with you guys and answer questions and just kind of, hear what's going on in your lawn. So I really appreciate it. Take care, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.